Oh, I just talked about being muted, and I was muted. Hi, Juan. How are you?
Good. How about yourself?
Good, good. Another day of the festival means that we're doing another one of our Meet the Filmmakers streams via our Facebook, YouTube, festival Facebook and YouTube pages. This is a chance for listeners to learn a little bit more about our filmmakers outside of their designated Q&As. It's a nice way for us to say hello to everyone and get this day started on the right note.
Yeah, it's been really exciting. I think we started this September after our first virtual festival, and it's been, I think it's gives us a chance to hear from the filmmakers and like really get to know them. And I think after hearing them talk and then watching their films, you understand a little bit more of them and their film. So
yeah, absolutely. We have a full house of filmmakers. The flow of this is very casual. We have limited space in the stream, so some filmmakers may leave, others may join. You or I might leave if another filmmaker needs to come in. So it'll be a free-flowing event. We're really excited to talk to our visiting filmmakers today. I'm going to bring them on screen so you don't waste another minute. I'll bring everyone on screen, and then we can do some introductions, and then we'll get into the questions. Sound good? Okay, this is awesome. This is a full house. I think this might be the most people I've seen on StreamYard yet. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
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 It's so great to see all of you. Thank you for participating in this live stream. If you're having connectivity issues ever, or if your sound is warbled, you can always exit the studio and try to come back in. Filmmakers, thanks so much for joining us today outside of your designated Q&A time. I think just to jump off, I want to give everyone the opportunity to introduce themselves and talk a little bit about the film that they're representing. So I'm just gonna, I don't know if everyone sees the windows in the order that I see them. So I'm gonna start with Barbarella Pardo. Hi, Barbarella.
Hi.
Do you want to tell us about the film?
Hi, Moises. Yes, of course. I'm the producer of Tijuana, I Love You. Our film consists on 7 short films set in different Tijuana locations. This is where we live. The director is Rene Bueno. I think he's joining us soon. And
He's in a car, so he might be having some connectivity issues.
He's in Aguascalientes now. So the stories talk about the 7 sins: lust, gluttony, greed, sloth, wrath, and envy. And our 7 stories, get like the characters get involved in they're separate like short films, but the characters meet in some time of the whole movie. What I loved about this movie is that we didn't have a large budget, but I feel that the locations and the national and local cast that we had helped us capture the magic of this cosmopolitan city and add production value to the film. 99% of the crew were locals. And this is important because we keep telling the US producers that Baja California is one good option to come and produce their films because of the closeness to Los Angeles and the availability that we have to rent equipment or to be close to their families, for example, and to bring people that we don't have here for certain departments, and for the professionals that we have here. This is a movie that I love because it shows Tijuana. It shows our city in a way that most of the movies that come to film here, they prefer to talk about the border and the immigration problems. The red zone, like the prostitutes and this kind of problems that we have with the drug dealers and everything, but that's not all we have here. That's not at all we have here. We have a very pretty city, cosmopolitan. We have locations that conform the desert, desierto, city, sea, beaches and everything, and woods. So it's a great place to come and shoot. And also we have a great studio. It's like the biggest water studio that we have in the planet. So that's what we like sharing. And in this film, we do exactly that. We have like some drone shots to show the world what we have here. And the stories are not exactly, what the most of the people come here to tell.
Thank you, Barbarella, for that wonderful introduction to Tijuana, I Love You. I might pair the next two speakers up because they're representing the same film. Adan and Virginia from Truly Texas Mexican. How are you?
Hello, I'm fine. Virginia, how are you?
Hi there. Hi, everyone. Wonderful.
Who wants to set the stage for the film? You both can speak, but who wants to start?
I'll let Adan do the
okay.
Opening. I'll let Adan do the opening.
Okay, I was going to recommend you that our film, our feature documentary is Truly Texas Mexican. It's a film about the Native American roots of Texas Mexican food that has been erased by the general discourse that Tex-Mex has taken over. And in the film, we say, Tex-Mex, enough with the cheese. It's by Anglos, for Anglos, and our story has been erased. It has Native American roots, and that's what we tell. It's tacos, feminism, and resistance against colonialism. That's what our film is about. And I'll let Virginia continue. She's the producer. I'm the writer and executive producer. I'm also the narrator host. And the director, who may join us later, is Aníbal Capuano from Uruguay, and the cinematographer is Gabriel Bendan from Uruguay. So this is a Texas-Latin America collaboration. Virginia?
Right, and I'll say that our film is based on Adan's book, Truly Texas Mexican. And I think you'll find it interesting. It's not just recipes. It's the whole historical background of where our food originated, that we've been here in Texas, in northern Mexico, 15,000 years, and how a lot of that has been erased, and that the term Tex-Mex is not, it's a term that was created for food that, again, with the cheese, and it's something that was more palatable to Anglo folks that came into Texas. So that was really important. We shot the whole film here. We were on a road trip for 9 days, all four of us in the van, starting out in Houston, Texas, and went all the way down to the valley and down to Harlingen and also the coast, our beaches, to tell the story and to interview very interesting people that were not ones that you would normally go to. These were home cooks. These are restaurateurs. We have two Native American men that tell us our story. So it's really interesting in that we are an international team, and that we found that the same issues, the same things that came up with colonialization were in Uruguay as well as here. And these were van discussions, and it was like these things were the same, which is really interesting.
Thank you, Virginia, for sharing that wonderful introduction to Truly Texas Mexican. Barbarella said that she needed to leave. We'll talk to her later tonight for the Tijuana I Love You Q&A. We might have some other filmmakers join in. But yeah, let's continue on with the general introductions. Let's talk to Daniel Larios from Super. Is it Superstar or Superstar?
Superstar. Yeah,
Superstar.
It's like intentionally added a vowel because when you speak, obviously in English with a Spanish accent, when there's too many consonants, you just insert a vowel. And the film, half of the film is in English and half of it's in Spanish, and it's subtitled for both. And I thought it was like the most appropriate name for the film. But yeah, I'm happy to talk about it. So my film's a short fiction film about two Salvadoran women. One who's a first generation indie pop singer, kind of like new to the LA like music scene, and then the other is an immigrant bathroom attendant working at an LA nightclub. And the way the night transpires, they end up, you know, bumping into each other and kind of connecting over, you know, the shared heritage, mutual love of music, and the general horrible night they're having. And the film's really special to me because I really wanted to make a film that like was written not just in Spanish, but in the specific caliche, like colloquialisms of like Salvadoran dialect in an LA context. And I really wanted to cast actual, you know, Salvadoran women to play the lead roles, and I did, and I'm very proud of them. They're like honestly like the heart and soul of the film, Jackie and Jasmine. They're incredibly talented, and I hope, you know, this leads to more acting opportunities for them as well. And the film is very much about, I think, also the generational differences between first generation and immigrant families, and the way kind of you have things in common, but there's also incredible measures of privilege and difference in those journeys, and what that means to navigate those spaces. And like, you know, just the specialness of running into someone who knows where you come from, especially in a world that, you know, you don't get to see that very often. I've lived in places where it's a very like predominantly white American, or even just working in the film industry, honestly. Sometimes it's like, I remember when I first started, like I honestly sometimes connected more with the cleaning staff at like the studio I'd work at, more than like the people I'm supposed to be ingratiating myself to, because I really didn't have anything in common with them. And at the same time, recognizing that like I have like for one reason or another, a seat in the room, but often it's the worst seat. And kind of, you know, I guess the film, I think, interrogates hopefully a lot of that in a fun way with amazing music. We made like all original club music, and there's like a couple original songs in the film too. It's a lot for, I think, a short, but I have like an incredible music community around me that we brought into the film. And it actually premieres at noon today and plays until noon tomorrow in the Hechos in USA block. And there's some other really cool shorts that look like they're in that block. So definitely, if you're wondering what to watch in the next 24 hours, add that to your list.
Thank you, Daniel. Sharon, let's move to you. And do you want to tell us a little bit about When You Clean a Stranger's Home?
Yes, thank you, Moises. It's an excellent time to segue into that because I also play on Daniel's showcase. We both play in the Hecho and USA program that starts at noon today. And my film is about a mom and a daughter. It's a video essay about a mom and a daughter who clean houses for a living. But the mom's cleaning it for a living, and she takes the daughter with her. So it has a lot of like the mother-daughter dynamic with an immigrant parent and a first-generation Mexican-American offspring. And it's based on me having cleaned houses with my mom. It's told through the perspective of the high school student who is writing an essay talking about the things that her and her mom see in these different houses, like belongings, things that belong to the guests, and just kind of seeing how their life is different from their own. So it's very observational, and it's a quick 6-minute watch. And our crew was 98% female crew through post-production here in Texas, with some people in California. And yeah, I think that covers most of the info y'all need to know. It is subtitled in Spanish, so if whoever attended virtual red carpet, we told y'all to please call your tias up. We did translate it. So.
Thank you so much, Sharon. And here we have Lisa from Missing in Brooks County. Lisa, do you want to tell us a little bit about your feature documentary?
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. So I am talking to you from Tucson, Arizona, and my film is Missing in Brooks County. And Missing in Brooks County is a documentary about Brooks County, Texas, which is home to more migrant deaths than anywhere else along the border. In Brooks County, there's an interior checkpoint that immigrants have to circumvent in order to continue on their journey. And this causes them to get lost or dehydrated in the desert and go missing or eventually be found. And we, Jeff Bemis, the co-director, and I happened upon this story. We learned of the work of someone that was an activist in the area. And we went to Brooks County, and Eddie Canales will be joining me for the Q&A. He's the one activist who is working in Brooks County. He often has volunteers working for him, but he's sort of the hub of activism there, and he's also the hub of our story. So all of the families that come to Brooks County or call searching for their missing loved ones interact with Eddie. So he's the hub of our story, but the main stories in our film are two families that come to Brooks County to look for their missing loved ones. And we, the film is a cinema verite film, so we really wanted to, you know, we went to Brooks County 15 times over the course of 4 years, and we wanted to get real moments of things happening there. And so it's not a film where we're telling you what to think. It's a film where you get to experience what these families are experiencing for 80 minutes. And we also have perspectives from Border Patrol agents and other law enforcement and ranchers, local ranchers, and forensic scientists who are trying to identify unknown remains. So it's kind of an ensemble piece, but the main two stories are two families who come to look for their missing loved ones. And anything, yeah, no, that's it. That's all I want to say. Just I'm so honored to be part of this festival. So thank you so much for inviting us. And I'm looking forward to seeing some of the other films. They sound really great.
You know, as a programmer, I think the highlight of the festival experience is really doing Q&As with filmmakers when we're in person and now virtual. So I just really want to thank all of you for letting us screen your films on a virtual platform, making the time on a Saturday to join us this morning and later today. The effort of filmmakers is so massive in terms of getting exposure on their films and participating in this Q&A. So just know that the festival is forever indebted to your artistic expression. So thank you so much for letting us screen your film. And thank you for providing that much needed context for all of your different movies. With that being said, maybe we can segue into maybe a more general discussion that anyone can answer. Maybe just raise your hand, or just you know, if there's a gap, feel free to insert your thought. But I guess a question I have for each of you is, what are ways that you're staying creative during this past challenging year? Our festival was actually canceled in March 2020, maybe like literally a year ago. So Juan and I we've had a very interesting year, as I'm sure everyone else has. But for creators and artists, what are ways that you've been staying creative during this time? Whoever wants to start.
I think
so hi.
Sorry, Gustavo. Gustavo. Sorry.
That's all right.
Gustavo,
we're all getting used to this virtual world, right? So I think
I was going. I think I lost order because I was going the wrong way. I don't know. Okay, sorry, Gustavo. Right. Letter of rec.
Yeah. Can you guys hear me? Okay. Okay, cool. So I'm Gustavo Bordado. I'm the writer-director of Letter of Rec. It's a short, along with the other awesome Echona USA program. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys' films. It's a story about a high school Latina who's trying to get her lazy Latino history teacher to write her a letter of recommendation for a scholarship she needs. And it's kind of a what you do to get that person to write you a list or a letter. and then he gives advice on how you avoid to write those letters. I'm a video teacher. That's my full-time job. I teach high school video production, so I'm fortunate enough to combine my two passions of education and filmmaking on a regular basis. So so that's what inspired this film. I have 101,000 stories of being a high school video teacher, having done it for 10 years plus now. And so yeah. And then going back to the question of how I have been keeping busy in the pandemic, I shot this film October of 2019, and being a busy high school teacher, I was planning to start working on it, in 2020, and things got busy as usual, and then the pandemic hit, and so I had a lot of free time. So I just delved into editing. I edit the film myself, and that's what kind of kept me sane and kept me from getting too scared when things got really crazy. And then since then, being the video teacher at a high school, I've been in really high demand because everything has gone virtual and video wise. So that's the other way I've been really keeping myself busy, is just doing a lot of virtual things for my school community. But it's been amazing to collaborate with this new technology of Zoom, and being in the Bay Area, I was able to keep in touch with my actors in Los Angeles, and that's something I wouldn't have done pre-pandemic. Being able to work with my audio editor, who also lives in LA. Again, I guess the good thing out of the pandemic is that we've learned how to work from home and work from distance, and so that's kind of how I've kept busy.
Thank you, Gustavo. Who wants to go next?
I guess I can go. I am part of a accountability. I joined an accountability group that came together during the pandemic, and it's a bunch of Texas women in film, Latinas, and that kind of helped me stay productive. But it didn't form till like a few months into the pandemic, and the first few months of the pandemic, I feel like there was no creative juices going, so I was just focusing my energy on more like pragmatic things, like figuring out a way to organize my receipts for the following tax year, and just being very objective about everything. And I think something that's really helped is to lean into whatever your brain is wanting to do with you. And even today, like now I'm in the middle of writing 3 different scripts. Suddenly, all the juices came. But even with that, there are days that I just cannot get through the day, and it's just, creatively. And so I started playing video games a couple weeks ago, and like finally touched my guitar and my mandolin, and it was like my brain was just like, do something else. You don't have to be in this film mentality all the time. So that's been helping a lot.
I can, Sharon, when you were saying about your getting back to the guitar and the mandolin, it's the creative. What happened to us was this creative opportunity, really, because we finished shooting the year before, and we finished the first full-length cut, 90 minutes, in January. And then COVID shut everything down. We expected for our financing for the full final cut, which would to come through, and they were a series of high-end restaurants, Ninfa's in Houston, so they were coming together to finance the end, because they have a vested interest in the story. The story really is the racism that in the restaurant industry that stereotypes our food, erases the protagonism of it, and turns out ugly food. And in the film, one of the chef owners, this lady in McAllen, says, "We call it cardboard food." She's talking about Taco Bell, and everybody, so what happened to us, so the money drained out. We no longer had money because the restaurants really couldn't. I mean, they were in a terrible bind. They were in danger. So we were able to get financing, but the opportunity is that in Houston, our industry shut down. Virginia can talk more about this. She was more in, and so the editor, our online editor, whom we had contracted to work with, a brilliant man, his name is Bill Moore here in Houston, had nothing to do. He had no work, no commercials. So our film was there. We dumped 29 hours on him, and he got in his cave, and for 7 months, he worked 10, 12 hours days. And I said, you're working so much. And he said, well, what else am I going to do? And so he really got a chance to join our team and tell this story. How can this really be a universal story? You know, the pacing, I mean, he knows every single shot of those 29 hours by memory. I mean, Virginia, you know him well. That was our opportunity, really. But
right, it came out to be a good thing, you know, for us, and that we had Bill's undivided attention, you know, unfortunately. But what again, he said, what else am I going to do? It also gave us time, and in our discussions, thinking about, well, we have so much footage. There's still so much to tell that's not in this film, you know. So those discussions were ongoing under, you know, the actual finished editing the film that we have now. So we are bouncing around those ideas now about possibly a series, or, you know, we just have so much, and there's so much still to be said. I think we all came away with that. It's like, what do we leave out? Which is a wonderful thing to have, you know. But that has taken up some of our time. That's what we've been working on, aside, you know, from the film itself.
You know, could I just add quickly? This is very important to us because we are thinking of possibly doing a TV series that follows upon the themes. Everyone keeps telling us that because no one has ever said this about our food. I mean, women's role, they invented the technology. Well, it's in the film, but yet it's never been told, nor has it been told how we were erased. There's a scene in the film where the camera goes through the papers called the Indian Papers of Texas. And in there, we quote, it says, this Indian committee report to the President Sam Houston of the Republic of Texas. It says, your committee considers that the Tonkawa, Lipan, and Karankawa people are no longer separate people. They are in the Republic of Mexico, and they will no longer to be considered a separate people. So with the stroke of a pen, we were erased in the public discourse and in the records of our country. And there's a lot to tell there that we started to scratch the surface.
I can definitely chime into the question of how I've been staying creative. I mean, I think what Sharon said for me about needing to have something outside of film to, I think, maybe take the pressure off that work has been helpful. I've been surfing a lot and roller skating. Actually, I got like outdoor roller skates and I fall a lot. I'm not very good at either, but it's really fun. And I don't think you need to be good at something to have fun with it, which I think is also an important thing, especially like in something that can have so much faux competition as filmmaking. It's important to have fun doing it, which I also think was something important for me. We shot the film before COVID in like September 2019, and there was times when maybe like we could have been like grinding at it harder, but I realized like this needs to be a rewarding process. It's always going to be a difficult one, but like it needs to feel like it's coming from the right place. And I knew the stress that like this caused on a lot of my team is necessary to set a healthy pace for like how we were going to finish it. And I think that was important. And I think that's good for like anyone that's like interested in filmmaking to know, like I think it's rewarding to take your time and I think like I'm like relatively, I think, young, but like I definitely, like when I was younger, I was like, I need to make like X amount of shorts and whatever, blah blah. And like the older I get, the more I'm happy I didn't do that and like had a life and have a life. Because for one, you have more to say, and for two, like it's just like you need to take care of yourself. Therapy has also been amazing during the pandemic. I'm definitely the kind of person who needs that. And I think it's important to be in conversation with yourself and with people who maybe can help you do that and facilitate that. So that's like, I guess, what I have to offer on that front of how I'm staying creative. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that you guys are talking about having a hobby or something other than film during this time, because normally in my life, I don't indulge in that because I have a family, I have a career, I teach at a university, I have many students that need me. I'm constantly feeling like I never have enough time to do anything. And I actually picked up with a hobby as well during the pandemic. And I'm getting so much pleasure out of my little hobby. I can't tell you. So I think it's such a great lesson to learn during this whole thing. But your question's interesting for me because we're in the middle of outreach and impact, distribution. And I don't find that to be creative at all. So I'm a filmmaker. I like to make films. I like to shoot. I like to edit. I like to do the creative part. And now we're in this business part. But I have to say that, so I'm at home all the time, but it's actually not been a bad thing to be in my office every day working on the film. We're heavily involved in impact right now with the film. So we're getting together policy, people working on policy, border policy together to discuss the issues in the film. And we've been able to reach, some pretty powerful people because everyone is home and accessible really through Zoom. And so that's been really rewarding to, it hasn't been creative, but it's been really rewarding to see the possibilities of getting our film, in front of Congress or, being used as a tool for all of these people that are working on policy, but don't have a tool like our film that really shows the humane, sort of emotional part of all of these conversations that they're having with, trying to change border policy. So anyway, I don't feel like I'm particularly creative right now, but I do feel like, there are advantages of being forced to not travel and just be home to really make those phone calls and Zoom calls and send the emails and all those things that I don't really like doing very much, but you have to do.
Thank you all for all your answers. I have as we might have mentioned before, a large part of our audience and also it's a younger audience. And then we also have educational programs for kids and teenagers. So I wanted to ask, what is something that, any tips or recommendations that you would have for this, that is maybe someone gave you as you were starting out, or maybe something you learned as you were working on your projects? But any tips or recommendations you have for these younger and new generation of filmmakers? Who would like to go first? All right, I'm gonna call out.
I'll go first.
There you go.
Yes, I'll go first. So this turned out to be a time where you learned another skill, and that's the most that I can say. If you shoot, then you needed to learn. You start learning how to edit. If you light, well, then you need to learn how to shoot. So those skills are really important now. And then I think Adan can say we also all had to learn about the new distribution methods for our films, because we were going to go to South by Southwest, and that's what's going to happen. And we're going to meet people, and then there'll be people who want to pick up our film, and that all went out the window. So we had to learn new ways and how it was going to go. So it's a learning experience, I think, for everybody. And now I don't know that they're going to go back to that anytime soon. So I think that's an important skill that they'll need to figure out.
Yeah, I think another skill too is like I always tell young people to learn about business because as creatives, it's not something that typically comes naturally to us, but this is a business. Filmmaking is a business, and there's so much you can learn from it. I've been using the last 2 years to finally, learn about accounting or how to stay organized, and also maybe even how to communicate with people, learning how to promote yourself, because those are all things that you're not gonna naturally be good at, and so a lot of filmmakers are uncomfortable about, promoting themselves. But it is one of the most essential tools to get you from just being someone making something in your house and never showing it to anybody versus actually getting your work seen. So.
Yeah, learning how to make a solid spreadsheet has incredible value in everything as an adult. Another, I think, important thing is learning. I think it's very helpful, even though it's not like filmmaking per se, but like knowing how to like make a nice deck to like present your work and like knowing how to like share visual examples of your work in creative ways, I think is very useful. So knowing a little Photoshop and Illustrator goes a long way. And then a random piece of advice that I wish I had heard at a much younger age when I was very insecure about camera operating. I was listening to like a talk Jennifer Fox gave, and she was like, someone asked, I have really shaky hands. I'm very nervous about camera operating because every time I hold like my DSLR, like it's like super shaky and I don't know how do you like deal with that? And it was like a very practical piece of advice. She was like, get a heavy camera. So she's like, I do that. So, I mean, it's like a very like specific note, but honestly, it's very helpful. I have really shaky hands, so I like always get nervous about like camera operating for myself. But that was like, oh yeah, just get a heavier camera.
I personally prefer a lighter camera, but that might be other reasons for that.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like light cameras are good. I kind of use a lot of heavy cameras, unfortunately. The advice I always give my students, because I meet a lot of them, is instead of focusing on what you don't have, focus on what you do have, right? Like we always, at least especially my teen students, they're always like, oh, I don't have a wardrobe and I don't have a restaurant. I'm just like, well, have you tried to ask? I mean, being polite and being friendly goes a long way. Or one of my students had access to a really amazing barn, and they shot this awesome Western in a barn, where I teach. It's a mix of suburban and agricultural. So they shot this amazing Western, and one of the reasons they did that is because I said, like, I basically made them do an assignment where they had to break down what locations they had access to so they could kind of figure out what kind of story they can tell. So that's the best advice I could give a budding filmmaker is focus on what you do have and exploit what you do have access to.
I was going to say, for me, I remember a moment where I think I was in my, to be honest, I was in my mid-30s, and my son was old enough. He was starting kindergarten or whatever, and I was ready for the next phase of my career. And at that point, I had been doing a lot of editing of documentaries, but I didn't really know, I really wanted to make my own films, and I had started to shoot a film, but I kind of shelved the footage while my son was really young, and I was trying to figure out what to do next, what was the next phase of my career. And I sought out a mentor. So someone I had access to that I really admired her work. But she happened to also be teaching at the same institution that I was teaching at. And we had dinner, and I kind of told her where I was, with my career, and I was trying to figure out the next step. And she was like, make the film. You started this film, finish your film. And really, that had been I don't know how many years it had been since I shot that film, but And really, I just really respected this woman, and I just finished that film, and that really got my directing and producing career off the ground by making that first film. But it was scary for me because, you know, I didn't even know how to go about finishing the editing, because I think I had a rough cut at that point, but it needed a ton of work. And you know, having someone like her kind of push me to do it, you know, to really encourage me and to follow up with me to finish this film, I mean, that really changed everything for me. So I don't think I would have had the courage really to do it if it hadn't been for her kind of guidance.
I started making, I started in television when I was 21 in San Antonio with KWEX. The precursor of Univision network was SIN, Spanish International Network. And I was doing a local show. And then in 1973, it was a national variety entertainment show. There was no satellite. So we took the 2-inch high band color, big boxes. I would take them from the TV station, take them to the Greyhound bus station. It would drive over to Arizona, then New Mexico, California, then New York. So that's the way we were distributing the show. I did a lot of documentaries that were short, but I left that career. And what I'm doing now is I'm a chef. I've written 2 cookbooks, and I do a lot of culinary work, but I'm returning to it because of friends. And the advice I would give, and ever since that first trips to the bus station, is depending on friends is so important. We did this film because a friend of mine, who is the director of this film, is Aníbal Capuano. It was his idea to do this. After he read my book, he said, this is a universal story. And then when Virginia read it and came along and said, this is my story as well, because she's from San Antonio, it became more of a strong story. So I would say to a young filmmaker, depend on friends. I think you're going to want to tell a very personal story, which is yours. This is my story. I want to speak my truth. But your film will be good when you speak your truth. It's universal. That's when it's really true, because it's universal to other human beings. And you'll get a better way of doing that if you have close friends who are going to support you, whom you trust. That'll, if you can develop that and have that, that's very, very helpful. It was to me.
Thank you all for your thoughtful responses. Does anyone else have anything to say to that point? Okay,
I
well,
wanted
yeah, go ahead.
I wanted to piggyback onto what Daniel said earlier about pitch decks, because that is the way I've been staying creative during the pandemic. Since production's a little harder, money's a little low, but with pitch decks, you can just you can be in the stage where you're dreaming up what your film's going to look and feel like, and put it into like a PowerPoint presentation. And Sundance actually has a bunch of free classes, and they have a 3-hour class on pitch decks. That's just incredible. It goes through narrative and documentary pitch decks. So I recommend checking that out.
Thank you so much, Sharon. Thank you all for all your thoughtful commentary. We are approaching the start of our film programming today, so I think it's best we wrap up. Once again, Letter of Rec, When You Clean a Stranger's Home, Super Estar will play today at noon in our Hecho and USA film program. The Q&A starts at 3 p.m. And then we have Truly Texas Mexican starting at 2:45. The Q&A is at 4:15. And then we have Lisa's film Missing in Brooks County starting at 2, and the Q&A is at 3:21. So we have a lot of content to watch, a lot of Q&As to participate in. And I guess before we leave, one last question is just maybe as maybe last word is, what is maybe one film, doesn't have to be your favorite film, that you think every emerging filmmaker should watch, or maybe a film that's inspired you? It doesn't have to be your favorite movie of all time. Just something, maybe a film that's shaped the way you create film or the way you look at film. Does everyone have something in their mind? Okay.
For me, it's
yeah.
For me, it's El Mariachi, Robert Rodriguez. Not because I do action movies or that I think it's like the best movie ever made, but he was the first Latino filmmaker that I studied, and I read his book cover to cover. And he was the first filmmaker that made me feel like, oh crap, I could do this. I might be able to actually do this. Like if he could do this, I can do this. He made that movie for like I think $7,000 or something like that. And so while I mean I haven't watched it in decades, it to me as a young Latino filmmaker, it's what inspired me. I think every young Latino filmmaker or any filmmaker really can be inspired with what he pulled off with such a minuscule budget and friends like we were talking about.
Great. Thanks, Gustavo. Who wants to go next? Okay, Lisa, why don't you tell us your choice?
I'm blanking on just one. I mean, there are so many. I love to watch films made by women, by other women. So I love Agnes Varda's films, and I watch them over and over again. But yeah, I don't know. I almost feel like just watch tons of films. I mean, even watch bad films. There's so much to learn by watching other people's films, and watch Missing in Brooks County today. But no, I mean, it's and watch a lot of short films, seek them out because they're not as, but coming to a film festival like this, you can watch a collection of short films, and that's a great opportunity because you don't get to see good short films all the time, on Netflix or other places where you go and watch movies. So.
All right, thank you. Sharon, how about you?
Here we go. Yeah, this is always a hard question, but I guess I'll just recommend the film that made me want to, that made me pay attention to this art form, which was Brave Little Toaster, and it was in the 5th grade, and we were analyzing it, and I was like, oh, I see, like people are constructing these stories, and I know that, I'm pretty sure Brave Little Toaster also inspired like Pixar, with just like these inanimate objects, but I think just seeing how they developed each of those characters and how they each have their own mannerisms. I mean, you'll find that in every film, but it's very obvious when you watch a movie like that. It has a clear problem, a nice journey, and the music is great too.
Very good choice. Thanks, Sharon. Daniel.
Yeah, like what Lisa said about shorts is so important. I think there's actually a lot of great shorts by now feature filmmakers that like are readily available online. You can find. I've seen like shorts like before they were big by like Barry Jenkins or like Garrett Bradley or like just like there's a ton of shorts online that you can find. Just look up your favorite filmmaker and look up their like early college stuff. Bong Joon-ho, there's a bunch of shorts of his from when he was a college student online. And then the film that definitely like spoke to me that was like, oh, I want to do movie stuff. There was two, so I'll just be brief. But one was Boys in the Hood by John Singleton. I was like living in El Salvador at the time that I watched it, and there was like a lot of gang stuff. And then in that movie, it's kind of a similar context, but in LA, and it really spoke to me, I think, in a very specific way. And then another is a documentary called La Vida Loca by Cristian Poveda, which is about the Salvadoran gangs. That is like an amazing documentary that unfortunately the filmmaker was killed by the gangs shortly after its release in El Salvador. But it's like an incredible and astonishing, like the access is like amazing. And it's like I think an interesting look into that world that you don't often get to see even as someone living there, you see it as a subject to it. But it's different to like be in their homes and like see another side of that. So I think those are two great recommendations.
Thanks, Daniel. Virginia, do you have a recommendation for us?
Boy, I'm drawing a blank too, but all I can say is I started out as a camera operator, and that was initially how I got into filmmaking. And the movie that made me just say, oh my God, there's this whole world, I have to say is Lawrence of Arabia on a huge screen and the vistas. And that made me want to do this and pursue this. And then it got to more where you're telling stories with your lens. And I think we have some of that in our film. So go look at Truly Texas Mexican. We have some beautiful vistas that you'll feel Texas when you see that.
Thank you, Virginia. And Adan, do you want to close us out? You're muted. Apologies, you're muted.
Yes, I was thinking. I think it's a short film. It's by Esperanza Vasquez. She was the wife of Moctezuma Esparza, if you remember him. He was a producer of Selena. She did a film, I think it's in the early 80s. It's Águeda Ramirez. This is Our Country, and it's a short film where this woman in New Mexico weaves and cooks. And she takes the chiles and she makes up these big tortillas, which surprises us Texans because our tortillas are smaller. She has this huge tortilla. The audience gasped when we showed it, but it's a beautiful film. It was nominated for an Oscar. And it made a big impression. It's beautifully shot, very sensitive. So I would say that one.
Well, thank you all for your wonderful recommendations, for your amazing answers, and of course, your time. I think we're ending at the right moment, 3 minutes out from our first programs of the day. Juan, did you have anything to say as a closing remark?
No, thank you so much for joining us at this early hour, and I look forward to hearing from your Q&As a little later and talking more about your films with you.
Yeah, that's when the questions get really hard. That's when it gets going. All right. Thank you all for your time, and we'll be in touch shortly. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Oh, hey.